Okay, well, well, I apologize, everybody, as I say each week. I start this video off 36 minutes ago, saying that I'm not any more comfortable this week, maybe less than I was the first 3 weeks, because Digital Abyss and myself seem to have allergies. And when we get together, something goes wrong, and I usually feel okay, but my digital equipment doesn't and malfunctions. But it's been an interesting week. A lot of things have happened, and we're continuing to spiral into an abyss. And I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about what I did earlier this evening. But it's interesting to me that we're allowed to go skiing. My wife and I love skiing. We'll be heading out because that's one of the activities that we're allowed to do. It's okay to go skiing, but it's not okay to go skating on an open rink. And that's a little bit frustrating to me. And I think for many Albertans that saw the video of the arrest of Ocean this week, were upset. And the discussion back and forth was sad to see that those that are on the side of the police state and say, yeah, the police and the state should be able to protect us from ourselves, when the fact of the matter is I don't know if we're up to 17 healthy Albertans that have passed away from COVID, and 851 Albertans, though, or 857, have passed away, which is a tragedy for every family, for every lost life. But I don't know what else one can say, except for you have to look at the whole, and you can't just focus on one life or one individual. And again, if we're losing 2 or 3 lives every day to COVID, and that's front and center of the news, what about the other 58 that lost their lives? Do they not count? Is the only thing that counts in Alberta today and in many parts of the world is just how many and who is dying from COVID? I read an article this week that young people like this young Ocean, who is out playing hockey, has a much greater chance of dying while driving his car back and forth to work or to get food or something else than they do from COVID. If we were to take the I want to say the mentality or the reasoning for this shutdown, and this is different, I realize this, but if we really want to save deaths, well, one, we could shut down cars and say, there's no more vehicles in Alberta. We're suffering too many deaths every day. Or we could do as we're currently under and say everything is shut down to 15%. And so in most places in the province, the highest we can go is 100 kilometers an hour. So we'll only go 15 kilometers an hour on our highways. And again, if we're in a school zone, well, then you'll go down to 3 or 4 kilometers an hour, and we're going to slow everything down so that we can save the world from accidents and problems. It's also interesting to me, but I couldn't find this one report that I read a couple of years ago, that we continue to have government step in and say that they're going to provide greater safety and greater, just greater safety. And we're always raising the level of safety equipment, and whether it's boots and you got steel toes, and then you got boots and you got steel shanks, whether you have to wear glasses, whether you have to wear a helmet, and it just goes on and on and on. If you look at workmen's compensation and all of the rules and regulations that they've got, it's amazing. I remember at a very young age, at 5 or 6, I was quite active. I was a gymnast, and I loved climbing up and going up the trees at the farm and down. But my father built a shop, and at the one end we had 8-foot walls, and at the other end it was a 16-foot wall. And my father literally had me up on the other wall, and he was on a step ladder and up 16 feet. And my uncle was on an old tractor with a front end loader with a long boom. and lifting the rafters up. And I was up there nailing down my end. My father was on the other end, and we put these rafters up. And today, you're pretty much stopped from even going up with all the safety equipment we have. And now you see big forklifts and front end high cranes coming in, and they build the roof on the ground and lift it up, even when it's only 8 feet off the ground. And the question is that the role of government to continue to raise the level of safety? But yet, like I say, this report that I read a couple of years ago, and I can't find it, it tracked the number of accidental deaths since like the 1890s. And it was interesting whether it was 2 or 3%, but with all of the safety rules and regulations that we've put in, we still lose 2 or 3% of people to accidents every year. And so we as humans are able to carry on and find a new way of losing our life, regardless of all of the oversight of government. But going back to the predicament that we're in, and I just want to give one other story here. I apologize because I gave it earlier, but my wife and I, we love skiing, and we're going up there, but I couldn't help reflecting back to 2 major accidents that I had in my youth. And I'm just going to refer to the second one now for those that watched the other one. But it's up at Fernie. It had rained. It was sheer ice, and I was coming down on the moguls, and the velocity was scary. Speed, and so I'm going sideways, putting on the brakes, everything I can, and my skis are just a chattering, and all of a sudden, snap! My bindings popped, and I came out of my skis. Had a pretty hard fall. It was icy, and anyways, I finally got around to where I was going forward down the hill, but just going off those moguls and hitting and off and hitting and just I was just getting beat to a pulp. But all I could see was trees at the bottom, 500 yards away, 400 yards away, 300 yards away, and it wasn't a fun trip going down there. And I just speeding up the first yards. Nothing I could just sliding down there. But luckily, I didn't run into a tree, and no real injuries, bruised up and hurt. But the question is how bruised up, how hurt are people from this COVID lockdown and what the government's doing to us? And again, telling us that it's for our own good, it's for our safety. And I have a problem with that. And again, so what we're going to talk about is what is the role of government? Is the government in the right? And again, the comments about this young man this week being arrested were quite interesting, but I'm going to try here and see if we can do this again. And I'm going to put up a little picture here that I thought was very profound that I saw this week. And I don't know, David, is this coming up, and can people see this? The top, it says, the law is not a moral compass. The people who hid Anne Frank were breaking the law. The people who killed her were following it. And that's the dilemma we're in right now. And in democracy, where we supposedly have this rule of law, and we're all to abide it. And many people were commenting on this young man and his friends that were out playing shinny hockey on an open rink and saying, well, they were breaking the law. And I know this has no comparison to the atrocities that the Jewish people and others did during World War II. But question is the law the moral compass? Is the law what is right? And in a democracy, I've often said and spoke on this, it's the worst form of government. Churchill said that, except for all the others. But I truly believe that we can learn from our mistakes, and we can improve, just like we have in treating even COVID. What we know to do now is very different than last March. And when you see the improvements, whether it's in flying, whether it's in boats, automobiles, just anything in life, if you go back 100 years and compare it to now, there's no comparison. But yet we can go back 100 years for our Constitution, and it's not improved and it's not any better. And worse than that is that people have learned to use the loopholes and created a divide and conquer attitude where the majority rules, and it's okay for the majority to pass the law and to take the life or the living or the hope of other people and say, well, it's the good for society. And so I just think that we're in a real moral dilemma here. And let's see here now, if I can switch back over and go to the next video that I want to show. Oops, that's not the one that I want, or I guess I showed it earlier. So we're at the last part. I'll back up here to the first part. Okay, this is the Home Team Heroes by Sobeys. And this is okay. Wow, what a powerful impact to see this exciting family here, that's in Calgary. This mother is single now, and trying to raise her 5 children, and she's deaf. And Ocean, the young man that was arrested as we started this off, is the object of this. And again, asking the question, is it right? Should they have been arrested? And I'll go back. We can go skiing, but we can't go to an open pond. And I think there's a real problem with the way these things are being enforced. But what's a more wholesome thing that these young men could be doing than to go and playing shinny hockey on an open rink under this lockdown? And yet, again, another sad thing that we've got into is we got the snitch line, and we've got those people that seem to think it's their civil duty to be reporting on people that are breaking these laws. And we're deteriorating into a totalitarian state, and it's very scary for me and for anybody who has come from the communist countries. And I know many family and friends that have been able to escape communism. And it's just, for them, they just can't believe that the people don't see that this great reset and what they're trying to do. But anyways, I just want to shoot ahead here with the family and to show you at the end of the game
Paul.
here. This is the first
Paul,
time. Yes.
you need to close the Anne Frank picture.
Okay, let's see here if I
The
can do
video's
that.
behind it.
Okay, let's see if we can make that work. Do we have the right picture there now, David?
Yes.
Okay, did they get to see the first part of the video then, or did I mess up on that again?
They did not.
So I should back it up then.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize, everybody. This is certainly trying. Okay, did that work out, David? Was able to see that?
Very good.
Okay, very good. So what we have here is I want to say is a role model family that have had a lot of struggles and tough times going forward. And again, is there any better model family? I just think it's an incredible family, and quite an opportunity for them to be role models in the community. I want to slip ahead here because 3 of these young men at that time were in the WHL, and here they are, 2 of them meeting for the first time. Want to.
What did she say? She's like, I think they're both.
So.
Porco Weisblatt has a partial break for Calgary to the Raider, and then the shot, he scores!
The second star for the Tampa Raiders is number 19, Ozzy Weisblatt.
Hey!
And your first start tonight from your Calgary Hinman, Porco Weisblatt.
So there, first game, the mother's there, hadn't seen her son in 3 months, but you can just see the love and the harmony in that family and the pride that they have. But yet these are the criminals of COVID and the situation that we're in right now. And I just think it's disgusting and it's wrong, and we need to stand up for these individuals and say no. But there's others that are saying, oh, it's the law, these police officers had the right. And I want to jump from there to show you the video. And again, it's been jumped ahead because I thought that we'd watched this and everybody saw it earlier tonight. But here's the officers telling these young men to get off the rink.
Ocean. Just shut up. Let's go. Let's just go.
Hey, let's go.
What's his name?
We're just gonna go. You're welcome to go, but you might want to help your friend. Yeah, he's What's his
Whoa,
name?
we're just gonna grab him. He's gonna go.
It's not a gun. It's a taser, and he's under arrest, and I have the authority to use force to effect an arrest.
What is he under arrest? We'll just leave it.
Okay, so isn't that great? Coming over there, I need to know his name. I have the authority to use force because I need to make an arrest here. And like I say, it's quite obvious by looking at this video that the world's coming to an end. This is a crisis, and thank heavens for our best. And I think this is an embarrassment for every person in uniform, and why we're losing trust in our and I wish I had peace instead of a police force. But anyways, it is, and I just want to show you the raise the violence that comes.
Let's
Okay,
go.
so what's his name?
Oh, let's go.
Oh, oh,
No, I didn't.
So listen to me.
And I heard him say,
What are you doing? Yeah, like videotape. Hey,
what are you doing?
what are you guys
What are you
doing?
guys doing?
You are under
Why are you,
arrest.
why are you
What are
grabbing
you
me?
doing?
Why are you guys grabbing me? Like, why are you guys grabbing me?
What are you
Whoa,
I think
doing?
we've seen enough there, but to raise the level of violence that these police officers are going to do, because they need to arrest this individual because he's a threat. And so we'll stop sharing here now and see if it goes back. But very disturbing. And again, it's not about what I want to call safety or I don't know, a situation where the police need to come in, and then the raised level of violence. And it really bothers me as you watch them that they couldn't ask him to say, just turn around, put your hand behind your back. We need to arrest you. No, we got to force you to the ground. We got to stick your face in the ground. We got to twist your arm. And again, this young man, I think, showed incredible restraint from not just pushing these officers off and leaving. But anyways, it's a real problem. And I'm hoping that people are putting in some comments here, because we need to discuss this and whether this is the right way that we want our society to be running here in Alberta. Because for me, it's wrong. I want a constitution that protects the individual's life, their freedom, their property, and their pursuit of happiness. And we've lost, that's just off the table right now. And I don't know. And again, this week, for those that the Justice Center was in court trying to get an injunction to allow us to have Christmas. That failed, unfortunately. I don't know how many of you are aware, and it's on my website though, but I sent out a letter to all of the MLAs. They could bring this to a stop if our MLAs were to come together in uniformity and an agreement that this lockdown is wrong. Give people the information, let those who are at risk that need to stay home, stay at home. If I want to go out with my wife to be able to go to a restaurant, I believe that it should be my right, and that restaurant should be allowed to be open. And yes, we've got new restrictions in place, but they continue to raise that level, and it's a real problem, and the collateral damage that's going to continue long term because of these lockdowns, and the people that have lost their businesses, they've lost their livelihood, is not going to be easily repaired, if ever. But yet one has to look and say, well, is this what Justin wants? Is this what Klaus Schwab wants with the World Economic Forum, is to destroy our economy and create a have-not province that becomes dependent on government? And you can look anywhere in the world where communism, socialism, totalitarianism, dictatorship takes over. There's no place that you see people prosper and that the peace is brought back. I mean, I think the best example that we could look at in the last 30 years is Venezuela, the richest, if not the second richest country in South America. And they've spiraled down to the second poorest in South America when they have so many resources. And again, this all goes back to government policies, government laws and regulations that destroy the freedom and the opportunity for people to go forward. But anyways, let's see if there's some questions here. David, are there questions coming in on the screen on this arrest, or what do we have going here?
Can you see the YouTube broadcast on your iPad?
I can, but I'm not seeing any questions. Are there any questions that have come up?
There are comments. There's mostly, well, they're all comments.
Oh, yeah. Here I'm finding one. The police do not have the right. They took an oath to protect the public, to follow our Bill of Rights. And yes, that is exactly the problem there, is that they're to protect. And again, I have a problem with even the name police officers. I think that they should be called peace officers or sheriffs. And that's their job, is to keep the peace. And there was no breaking of the peace. There was no threat with these government this people's individuals' freedoms is what government.
Looks like Paul's internet has gone down. He does live on a farm, so sometimes the internet is bad, so I'm just going to get him back now. Just hold on for a second, please.
The call coming in. David? This technology, it just continues to haunt me. Doesn't matter which way it comes from. It attacks me from the right, attacks me from the left.
Paul, your internet cut out.
Yes?
Your internet cut out, so you were gone for a minute. So you're back now.
Oh, so we're offline?
Nope, now you're back.
Well, is it going to come on to my... Do I have to refresh my iPad to see that it's back on, or do I just... Oh, there it is. I'm back on. Well, I apologize, everyone. Like I say, that technology and myself we struggle to be in the same room at the same time, trying to work on the same project. we'll carry on here. So anyways, going back to Ocean and this incident, I just think it's an embarrassment to all our frontline workers that are there to protect us, and their job is, to be getting the criminals and those people that are causing problems. These young men weren't, and they were out of order, very unprofessional. The foul language they started using, and yes, the young man maybe started, but there's no point for them to go on to that point and then to start threatening that they're going to taser him. And then like I say, the kneeing that they were doing and trying to disable him is just unbelievable to me. Very unprofessional, and I think that they owe this family more than just an apology. I think the Calgary Police Force, I was just disgusted with the article that they put out in defending these individuals, and then it goes back to our premier and our health officials saying that this is what we need to do. But yet again, I'll go back. It's okay for my wife and I to go up skiing on the ski hills tomorrow, but heavens forbid you can't get out on the pond because we don't have officials there to monitor it and to do that. And again, these young men have a greater chance of being killed driving to go get some food or some medical assistant or something else than they do playing hockey on an open rink like they are. And so we've really got things messed up here. But bottom line, we need a constitution that protects the individual, their life, their freedom, their property, and their pursuit of happiness. And that should be number one job of the government. Number two should be to be informing us and in that pursuit of looking for cures and answers. And so I want to shift to that, because this is the problem. It is this COVID virus, and we're not able to get a handle on it yet. But yet other places in the world are being innovative and looking, but yet they're not being addressed. And so I want to again try and share the screen. Heaven help us here if we're able to do this. But I'm wanting to show a video here of a Dr. Corey. Oh boy, is the screen shared? David, can you hear me, and can we talk back and forth, or are you silent again?
The screen is not shared yet.
Okay, let's see here then what I can do on sharing the screen. Share screen. We'll take Dr. Corey, got the video sound on. We'll go here. This is a Dr. Perry Corey from California, who is before the U.S. Senate committee. And this is over a week old now, maybe 2 weeks. I tell you, talk about a blur. Time's kind of losing its relevance to me. But I want to play here the first few minutes, because this is so important on what other places in the world are doing with this.
The ranking member's opening statement. I was discredited as a politician. I am a physician and a man of science. I have done nothing but commit myself to scientific truth and the care of patients. And to hear that I'm here because of a political angle, I am not a politician, I'm a physician. I want to start out by saying that I'm not speaking as an individual, I'm speaking on behalf of the organization that I'm a part of. We are a group of some of the most highly published physicians in the world. We have near 2,000 peer-reviewed publications among us, led by Professor Paul Marik, who is our intellectual leader. We came together early on in the pandemic, and all we have sought is to review the world's literature on every facet of this disease, trying to develop effective protocols. You just mentioned that I was here in May, and I recommended that it was critical that we use corticosteroids in this disease when all of the national...
Okay, I'm going to stop here for a minute because I'm getting texts again. Is this not coming through, David?
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Is the Anne Frank thing need to be shut down? My text is saying I got to shut her down again. Is that in the way?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, sorry about that, people. But so here's this physician, and again, later on he'll talk about the people that he's losing and how sickening it is. But he's saying, you know, I was here back in May saying you needed to use steroids to treat these people because they were doing the research up front and doing the trials. And it's just incredible to me how this has been politicized. And I'm going to jump ahead here a bit and see if we can get to the ivermectin. And
showing that as a prophylaxis agent, it is immensely effective. You will not get sick. You will be protected from getting ill if you take it. In early outpatient treatment, we have 3 randomized controlled trials and multiple observation as well as case series showing that if you take ivermectin, the need for hospitalization and death will decrease. The most profound evidence we have is in the hospitalized patients. We have 4 randomized controlled trials there, multiple observation trials, all showing the same thing. You will not die, or you will die at much, much, much lower rates. Statistically significant, large magnitude results if you take ivermectin. It is proving to be a wonder drug. It has already won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2015 for its impacts on global health in the eradication of parasitic diseases. It is proving to be an immensely powerful antiviral and anti-inflammatory agent. It is critical for its use in this disease. We, again, stand by our manuscript. It is a scientific manuscript. It's been submitted for peer review. But please recognize peer review takes time. It takes months. We do not have months. We have 100,000 patients in the hospital right now dying. I'm a lung specialist. I'm an ICU specialist. I've cared for more dying COVID patients than anyone can imagine. They're dying because they can't breathe. They can't breathe. They're on high-flow oxygen delivery devices. They're on non-invasive ventilators, and or they're sedated and paralyzed and attached to mechanical ventilators that breathe for them. And I watch them every day. They die. By the time they get me in the ICU, they're already dying. They're almost impossible to recover. Early treatment is key. We need to offload the hospitals. We are tired. I can't keep doing this. If you look at my manuscript, and if I have to go back to work next week, any further deaths are going to be needless deaths, and I cannot be traumatized by that.
okay, how much more passionate of a plea could we possibly have? And I guess I need to end the share here now. Let's stop that. I'm without words when you listen to a specialist like this. 2,000 papers that have been published by this working group. They focused everything on there, and he actually goes on, and maybe I should bring it back, but he talks about what they did was they researched and looked for repurposed drugs. And they find this ivermectin, and they found 3 or 4 other ones that help, but ivermectin was by far the most phenomenal of all of the drugs they used, and he's pleading with them to allow it. I actually called my pharmacist that I know here and asked him, you know, well, could I get some? He says, no, not without a prescription, and for the 4 pills, it's $40 here. They're handing these ivermectin and other antibiotics, vitamin D out in Peru, in Mexico, in India, and having phenomenal results. But here we're forcing our frontline workers to try and help these people, but we're not allowing them to use the tools that will actually save them. And it's just, it's almost criminal to me. It's appalling that our government isn't out doing the research, finding this, and allowing trials to be going on here in Alberta. With hydroxychloroquine, we had a trial going back in July, and they suspended it. You have to ask why, because that is another one of the leading drugs to use for this. And again, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, these are FDA approved, been used for 50 years, some of them, ivermectin only 30, and they've got an incredible track record. As the doctor mentioned there, that this drug, ivermectin, won the Nobel Prize in 2015. And those of us that are in the farming industry, this changed farming when we could switch and start to use ivermectin for parasitical control and the parasites in our animals. It absolutely changed the hog industry, because that was always one of the biggest problems, and you know, the worms that were in hogs and pork, and the need to cook it to 180, 185 degrees to ensure that all of the eggs and everything else was killed so these parasites didn't get into people. Ivermectin has virtually eliminated that, and is a wonder drug. But yet here in Alberta, where we're suffering and people are going into hospital, have you heard anybody being allowed to prescribe ivermectin to, even in a trial period, and asking people, would you know, here are the results, other places in the world, would you like to look at it? It's just, like I say, to me, it's almost criminal that our government is failing and not acting on this. I want to watch the next video here. And why is it not in order? This is not working, so bear with me here. Nope, that's what I was afraid of. Wow, I've lost my video here, but we'll go to this one then. I'll see if I can share this on the screen. Share screen. Why isn't it clicking? Oh, I'm not able to find it on here. Why not? I hope that this is sharing right. Oh, this actually isn't what I want. This is Ontario, and we'll come back to that. I'll see if I can find. Oh man, this is not going well. We lost those ones from Peru and Mexico, and I thought I had everything so well organized here before we got into this. Afraid I've lost them. Let's see where else, if I can possibly go back. Can't see my downloads now. They're not showing up. David, can you give me any clues on where I'm going to find these? Oh, maybe in this file here. We'll go over here. Ontario. Nope, it's not.
They should be in the tabs that you have open in Chrome.
I know that's where they're supposed to be, but when I must have shut it off and lost them, because they're not up there. Well, that's very disappointing.
So maybe you accidentally closed it, huh?
What's that?
You might have accidentally closed the tab.
That's what it appears that I've done. Anyways, I'll just basically share once again what it did. It's definitely disappeared off my screen. Okay, let's go back and see if you can even find me on here now. Wow, can't even get back to my screen. Same old problem I always end up having here, but I don't know. Am I back with me on the screen? Anyways, when you look at the one province in Mexico where they started handing out ivermectin, an incredible drop in the actual illnesses. And again, they want to talk about cases when I want to talk about infections. Peru has phenomenal response. India, every country in the world that is using ivermectin as a preventative or early treatment is seeing results. But yet we're watching people here in Alberta die. And as Dr. Corey said to the Senate, if this is happening, it's on you. And I just think it's shameful that we don't have a health official that is informing us and saying, look, we're looking around the world. We're looking for the best things that we can do. We need to desperately help our frontline workers who are exhausted physically, who are mentally being traumatized, dealing with these deaths. I've talked to doctors, they brought me to tears listening to them tell their stories. Talked to respiratory therapists, same thing. I ended up with wet eyes and tears listening to them and sharing their stories. And yet our premier and our health officials say the answer is to lock everybody down. We'll do collateral damage over here rather than treat them. We could look at again. I do have the stuff here from Ontario, which is quite interesting, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Is that sharing now? the Ontario, I'll watch here, and I apologize for the 20-second lag to see if this has come up on the
No,
screen.
it's not sharing yet.
Not sharing. Okay, thank you, David. Let's see here what we can do. We'll share the screen. We'll go with Ontario. And this is a number of people hospitalized in Ontario. And you can see back here in March 23rd, where it spiked. And again, very scary. But it's interesting when you look at Sweden, South Dakota, and other places that spiked and then didn't go to a lockdown, that basically their curve went down as ours did. And so the virus hit and then it subsided. And then we look at the second wave. But what's important on this is to realize is that these are the different categories of these are people in senior care. These are people that are in other facilities, and then you have the individuals. So we'll jump to the next one here, and I hope that it goes there. This is the number of deaths that we're seeing. The number of deaths in Ontario on December 17th, long-term care homes, 101 individuals, group homes and supportive homes, 14, child care, 0, bars and clubs, nightclubs, 0, retail, 1. And so it's very obvious, and the experts have been saying this, it's the long-term care, it's the seniors that we need to protect, and yet we're using blanket shutdowns in order to protect these people when, like I say, the charts very much show where the problem is, but we're failing to focus on them. And again, last week, our Lieutenant Colonel David Redman talked about the emergency response and how we should be doing that. Again, he said that the province threw out the pandemic plan and turned it over to our health officials to run things, and it's been to our detriment. But anyways, we're hurting. Our government continues to hurt us more. Our healthcare frontline people are struggling immensely, and yet we don't have a government that is looking for solutions. And this Dr. Corey, again, and maybe we'll go back and I'll see if his video will show where he talks about the need for repurposed drugs. I think this is showing up here next, and we'll just try playing that, but maybe I need to share this again. Or is this, David, do you know if this is up on the screen?
Go ahead. Press play.
Cannot keep caring for patients when I know that they could have been saved with earlier treatment, and that drug that will treat them and prevent the hospitalization is ivermectin. I am here today, I'm calling to action. The NIH, their last recommendation was August 27th. August 27th. I want to be clear. I am not here as a politician or a dramatist or sensationalizing what I'm recommending. I'm going to be very clear and very simple. All I ask is for the NIH to review our data that we've compiled of all of the emerging data. We have almost 30 studies. Everyone is reliably and reproducibly positive, showing the dramatic impacts of ivermectin. Please, I'm just asking that they review our manuscript. It is a serious manuscript by...
Okay, I just want to stop there for a minute and comment on that. He's begging them, he's pleading them, just review the papers, asking the government officials, the NIH, the National Institute for Health, the FDA, the CDC, he's saying there. And then he goes on, and maybe it was earlier, he talked about repurposed drugs, and he says, I understand the pharmaceutical companies, why would they want to research old drugs and look for a cure? But there isn't one government entity that has looked or funded this research, and he just says it's just wrong. That the NIH, the CDC, and again our own Alberta Health Services, that they should have been looking at this and running these trials and asking patients, would you like to be part of a trial and to try and take this? And instead we're sitting back, letting Albertans die, and not even looking to research around the world where they're bold enough to try these things because they want to save their people. But let's just listen a little bit more here if he gets into that.
Serious, highly experienced physicians and researchers. We have, I cannot call on more credibility than we have. We're not just a random doctor who's saying that we have a cure. I don't want to say I have a cure. I'm just asking, review our data. We have immense amounts of data to show that ivermectin must be implemented and implemented now. Senator, the last thing I want to say is, you know who's dying here? It's our...
Okay, I'm going to stop there. We'll stop sharing. He gets in and talks about the seniors and the minority groups that are having a much higher impact on this. Don't know now if my screen's working right or not. I tell you, every time I switch over, it seems like the same button. You have different results, but oh, I see on live Facebook that I'm there. But anyways, my point is that government's secondary job, and especially with this COVID, is they have the resources to actually be reaching out and looking around the world and bringing those resources on what's the best practices. And if they're doing it, that they're failing to tell us, to inform us. They seem to be pleased behind the scenes. They act all sober and serious in front of the camera, that they're trying to do something, but yet all of these things aren't being talked about, and it's wrong for me. And I think our government is failing us. I think our frontline healthcare workers are being mistreated by not allowing new medicines to be tried, and instead they want to keep us in this state of fear. And I guess I'm going to close off here, and then David, if you want to read me some of the questions, that would be much more helpful than me trying to do that. But the bottom line here is that we need the government to step up and to take the right actions to protect the people, to protect the individuals, and not to be playing God on deciding who can and who can't live, who can be free and being outside and who isn't, and to start our own trials here if they're skeptic and they don't want to read the trials, the 30 that have already happened around the world. But we need them to step up. There's no reason for us to be locked down and being treated like criminals when we're going out there and wanting to play a little bit of hockey on an open rink. But that's the situation we're in. But David, do you have some questions that you want to read out and ask?
First question. What are your thoughts on how to police the police?
How to police the police? Well, I think it needs to start at the top. And the policemen are sworn, an oath to uphold the Constitution and the law. And so the first thing that we need to have is the so-called dictators at the top not passing unlawful laws and then asking them to restrict or to enforce these laws. I talked to an individual, a retired RCMP intelligence officer, which I have a world of respect for. And he says, Paul, the first and most important thing that they should be doing when something like this comes along is educating. There should be signs that are being put up if we're going to even have such a law. But they're professionals. And when you go to any group of professionals, whether it's doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, what have you, they all say that they can govern themselves, and that's why they're professionals. And I, again, question that these two officers are professionals. I think they are very unprofessional. But if they were up to speed and paying attention, they should have come together. And again, it's another document I lost that was put out in Ontario, calling on the policemen to come together and to challenge their management teams, if you want to call it that, the chief of police, their premier, and challenge them on laws that aren't there. But professionals have discretion, and they could certainly use their discretion to come on and say, look, this isn't the right thing. You need to move on. And they could move on and leave, because most of the people there's a few that stayed behind. So then they weren't breaking the laws of too many on the ice, which is what the original complaint was by some snitch. But I believe overall the most important thing is to have an elected civilian oversight of the police. It doesn't work to have politicians because they seem to have an agenda. And again, whenever I talk about elected, I always, and again, go back to our Constitution, one of the problems and why we have the problem is everybody who's elected should be accountable. And the only way they are accountable is through recall. And again, for me, recall is very simple. 50% plus one of the total number of people who voted in the last election can recall an elected official. But I think civilian oversight is the safest way that are actually elected and accountable, and that they would come together. And I think a civilian group would say that, no, this is unlawful. We shouldn't be doing this. And to recognize those fundamental freedoms. But I hope that answers your questions. And if not, please text me or email me with some better ideas. But together we need to get control of the police and their direction that they're being given. Another question, David?
Okay. If, or I would like to say when, WIPA is successful, is there a plan to refresh the justice system?
Oh, excellent question, and thank you for it. You know, when it comes to the rule of law, it is, are we a just society? And I would argue not good enough. First of all, I want to say we veered off to this idea that every perpetrator and every criminal somehow has to be respected and given their rights, and we can't take away their rights. Even the idea that they can vote in jail is beyond me. But what we need to focus in the justice system, and again, when you look up justice, what it's talking about is to try and right a wrong. And again, when you talk about asking someone for forgiveness or wanting to repent, usually you try and correct anything that was wrong. And our victims are the ones that we should be most focused on first. And are we able to make them whole again? If they lost the vehicle, we can make that whole. If they've lost, if they've been physically assaulted, we can't make them whole, but we can certainly get them the help that they need through therapy. But in a just society, the first and foremost thing is to look after the victim and not victimize them over and over again the way we do. Second of all, though, those that have committed, the perpetrator, the criminal, we need to change and have rehab facilities. Those that aren't physical or major crime need to go into facilities. Trades, they can do constructive work, they can do something. The jail system has major problems. I mean, there is a situation for hardened criminals that they need to be, whether it's in isolation or whatever. But many the people that get convicted for the first time, especially young ones, they go in and the only thing they learn is how to be a better thief, better criminal, and it's not good. So we absolutely need to revamp it. We can, and I've talked to enough judges, police officers, that this is doable. It's not that hard to do. And like I say, focused on the victim and to make sure that we try and make them whole the best we can. But hope that answers your question. We could do a whole hour on the revamping of our I call it our legal system, and we need to transform it to a justice system. But thank you for the question. What's the next question there, David? And maybe we'll just go two more. I didn't realize how late it is. We've been going for quite a while. But let's have the top two questions, David.
Well, we have one question at the moment,
Okay.
And that is, where did the pressure come from that turned Kenny around to lock us down?
Excellent question. I want to say it came from the health officials. And again, if you actually go into those hot spots where we have the people in the ICUs, and again, we haven't used up all of our ICU beds, but the frontline workers, have been exhausted. And again, the techniques that they use, that when one person was exposed, or they came in and someone tested positive, they often would send home 14 people that were in their presence for 14 days. And they actually cut down the amount of frontline workers that we had. Historically, unless you have symptoms, we haven't stayed home from work. We haven't done this. And what really troubling to me is that they never did report and say, gosh, we sent 14 people home who may have been exposed to an individual who tested positive. They don't even tell us that this individual shows symptoms or just test positive. And again, they didn't ever follow up and say, well, we're learning, after the fifth go around, that we're sending all these people home, but only 2 or 3 out of 14 are ever testing or showing, an infection or testing positive. And so instead of actually coming in on this and bringing it down, that they opened it up. And this idea, again, we talked in the past about PCR testing, and this dog chasing its tail, has not been to the benefit of Albertans, and it certainly hasn't been to the benefit of the healthcare system. Another thing that is just crazy, that these tracers and the people that they've had making the phone calls, I don't know if they've changed their policy yet, but they wanted nurses to do that. And we took frontline workers out to be doing the tracing when they could have easily hired, whether we want to call peace officers, investigators. But I think they could have easily trained people, and we didn't need health officials to be doing the phone calling and coming from front line. But they've shortened it down. They put tremendous pressure on a few individuals. And because of that pressure and the deaths that were mounting, Kenny had no other solution. So he says, we have to. They just kept telling them that, our healthcare system is going to collapse if we don't lock everybody down. And out of that fear of a collapsed healthcare system, which they've spent no money, no time to create the robustness that we need or prepared for the second wave. And because of that, he flat out said, is that we can't afford to overwhelm or collapse our healthcare system. So we have to go into lockdown. And again, I just say that was very poor management, and they failed to look out for that. But I just want to thank everybody. It seems like we're like COVID. We're on a downhill slide on our our digital world. David is an hour away from me and tried to assist me tonight, and I thank David for that. And I thank those of you that have had the patience to stay on. But we'll be back in the new year. I wish you a Merry Christmas, a happy and prosperous new year, and may the spirit of Christmas be in your hearts, that you'll look out and that we'll try and help those in need. And whether that's by phoning, whether it's Zoom, video calling, please be considered that are struggling, and we need to reach out and try and help those that we know that might be struggling or lonely in the best way that you can. But may God bless each and every one of us, and may the leaders that are making choices be fortunate enough to find the information that will give them the wisdom to make the right choices, that we can go forward and not continue to have this collateral damage. But appreciate each and every one of you, and let's go out there and try and do our best and pay it forward in the best way we can. But thank you, and good night, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.